to that, say you even had this third party scenario somehow came true, third parties always govern in coalition. So even this dynamic of moral purity that you somehow think will magically be bestowed upon you if you didn't deal with the Democratic Party as like some type of metaphysical entity will always happen, because then you're in a European scenario and you're the left party and you got 5% of the vote and you're going to build a coalition with who? Same dynamic. You're going to go into partnership with somebody that you don't like. That's literally how it works. It's completely inescapable if you're talking about electoral politics. And the second point, I just want to add really brief to Button. I have been looking at, Brazil a lot recently, obviously, and one of the things that the right used in Brazil was they actually leveraged anti-austerity protests in 2013 and sort of migrated it to a broader, quote unquote, like anti-corruption politics, which was weaponized to only focus on left parties. So this also like free floating, like
drain the swamp
morality, the fucking corruption. We already have a case study where it is literally a useful tool of a fascist movement in Brazil.
Second home run of the year.
Get the ball outside, but Robert Dore never left his position. On the trampoline and into the end zone. Oh.
All right, so I want to talk about Jimmy Dore and sort of this half-baked idea to start a third party. I know that in some of the clips that I play, there are going to be some. Look, there are some things that I agree with Jimmy Dore on. There are some things that I agree with his guest on as well. I'm not. Obviously, I think that I have a mutual frustration with the way that our politics functions here in the United States. I just believe that the way that I think specifically Jimmy Dore approaches it is dangerous. I really do. I think that the way that Jimmy Dore approaches his frustration towards progressive policy goals not getting passed through the House of Representatives or getting votes on the House floor is actually damaging to the left in general. And I saw this video. It came out, I think, like a week ago, and he has basically a conversation. He plays a lot of clips in the beginning of this video where he's talking about Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk, and I don't really want to play a lot of those clips, but you'll hear him say Kyle, I think, in one or two of the clips, and just know that they're referencing Kyle Kulinski. They're sort of having a debate with Kyle Kulinski over the viability of a third party in the United States today, with just basically clips of Kyle talking about a third party on both his show and with Crystal Ball. So in that setting, so let's play the first clip. Let's just sort of just sort of a nice palate cleanser where it'll set the tone for, I guess, this video in general, because let's just watch this first clip together.
That's when you elect, and what I've made the point here, it would be better off if the Justice Democrats and the squad was not elected in the Democratic Party, because that's actually hampering change, because people see the squad and people like that in the Congress, in the Democratic Party, and they think there's someone fighting for them, and there isn't. What AOC and the squad have been doing is going along with Nancy Pelosi. Guess who Nancy Pelosi serves? Goldman Sachs, the military-industrial complex, and Big Pharma and the oil companies. That's who she and now Silicon Valley. That's who she represents. She's so when you elect a Justice Democrat or someone in the squad, they go to. You think they're voting for They're following what Nancy Pelosi says. So you are just like you're voting for Goldman Sachs.
Okay. First thing. Jimmy, why is that? Why do the people in the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives follow Nancy Pelosi, his terms follow, with their vote. It's not because they want to most of the time. And again, I know I'm going to get the Jimmy fans. Oh, you're just defending the, you know, the hierarchy of the Democratic Party. No, I'm using my brain and understanding the nuance of when there's a majority of corporate Democrats in the House of Representatives and the Progressive Caucus is a small minority of Democrats in the House of Representatives. Their protest votes on, you know, any given bill it's not going to help push their progressive agenda. They have to be strategic. Strategy. That is the name of the game. You can't just go. You can't. Well, first of all, you can get elected. Okay, so you know AOC is now a 2-term congresswoman. If she had Jimmy Dore's strategy of just obfuscation and, you know, voting against the Democratic Party line every single time, she would be a single term congresswoman. And that's not how you build a strong coalition and grow your power within our electoral system. That's not how politics works. But let's continue.
That's the sad truth. When you vote for a Justice Democrat, you are voting for the military-industrial complex. When you vote for them, you are voting for Big Pharma. They're going along with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And so if they weren't there, people would come to a realization a lot quicker that these two parties are done and we need to find another alternative solution. But having them in there keeps that carrot out there, that keep dangling that carrot. They're going to do something for you someday at some point. They ain't. And it's time for a third party, and it's time now. That's
okay. So I inherently disagree with Jimmy on that. I do. I'm just gonna cue up the same clip here. I look. He's making such an equivocation between what corporate Democrats do when they vote because they're beholden to their donors. Like Jimmy understands, Nancy Pelosi takes donations from big pharmaceutical companies or the military-industrial complex, you know, oil companies. You know, she's taking meetings with lobbyists all the time. She's, you know, the reason she, you know, she has said in the past what makes her such a strong legislator is her ability to fundraise. So I'm not arguing with the fact that I think that she is corrupted in the fact that she serves the people that give her these big money donations. But when she votes, when she uses her vote to carry out the wishes of her donors, I don't think that it's fair to put that same to put that on the progressives in the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives. I think that he's playing this dangerous game of saying, okay, well, because Nancy Pelosi is corrupt and she's making a vote based, you know, she's voting based on her corruption. Well, if anybody who votes that way, you know, votes in the same way as her, well, they're just as corrupt. That's just not true. It's just not. And so, let's see. Let's just go on to this next clip here. But you know, I really think that it's a dangerous game, and it disempowers the left, because if you take the most progressive members of the House of Representatives and you say, well, they're just as corrupt as Nancy Pelosi or Joe Manchin, you know, they're the most corrupt, or you know, it like you said, yes, in your mind, okay, well, you're dangling that carrot and saying, well, okay, you know, there's progressives in the House, but they're just as corrupt. That doesn't do that. That's misinforming people who are naive when it comes to electoral politics, and it muddies the water. It muddies the waters when it comes to differentiating between career politicians who are corrupt and young progressive 1, 2, or 3 term, you know, first, second, or third term Congress people that are trying to gain a foothold in the power structure in Washington, D.C. So let's play this next clip.
Imagine how much power they would have right now if the squad broke off and joined the People's Party. The Democrats and the Republicans would not have a majority.
Okay. Wrong. This whole time, all I'm hearing from, and I believe he will say it in this clip. Well, okay, if the two parties, if they have this opposition of a third party in Washington, D.C., well, they'll be the kingmakers. Oh, you have to come to the third party. You come to us, and we'll you're gonna have to latch on to our policy agenda, and because we're we'll have the majority, or oh well, we've sectioned off a portion of power that nobody has a majority. You have said that Jimmy, I know Jimmy has said it, that both parties are the same, that we have a one party system. So you don't think that if a third party gains a foothold in Washington, D.C., maybe you get a certain number of Congress people elected in this People's Party, that the Republicans and the corporate Democrats and the Republicans won't form a coalition to usurp any sort of power that the People's Party has? Any progress that's made in Washington, D.C. is through forming coalitions with people that have already been there and are in positions of power currently. It is naive and it is not realistic to think otherwise. I understand in a perfect world, if we were to have ranked choice voting, or a voting system where the person who wins the popular vote won any election, maybe things would be a little bit different. But right now, with the way that our campaign finance system is set up, and the way that the Electoral College exists, and the amount of power that is the power structure in Washington, D.C. does not allow for a third party to function in the way that they're talking about here. Let's continue.
Whichever party wanted to pass something would either have to go to them, or they would have to reveal themselves further as being one party by working together against essentially the People's Party.
Exactly.
That's
like I said.
What they would do if they were serious about pushing policies, because anything we can do to try to move the squad and the progressive members of Congress, whether it's like a letter writing campaign, or whether it's visiting their offices, calling their offices, all of that, if that's not going to move them, all of that is below the pressure that you put by actually starting a third party and giving people options. By starting a major new party, that is like going nuclear. That is the highest level of pressure you can put.
It's not.
And if they're not going to change when you put that level of pressure, then you know that they weren't going to change when you do any of the other things. So we need to stop messing around with them, and they need to leave, and we need to demand that they leave, because they're not going to do it on their own.
100% with you.
100% with you. No, that's bullshit. I'm sorry. It just is. If we were to set up any sort of opposition in terms of a third party, that's inconsequential to what is set up in Washington, D.C. It just is. I mean, I'm sorry. It doesn't scare anybody in Washington, D.C. because of the way that, again, our campaign finance system is set up, and the way that our elections are held, the role that corporate media plays in swaying public opinion or support for candidates. All of these things are set up in a way that make it so that if you were to run your third party, and okay, fine, you get 2, 3, 4 Congress people elected, what does that do in terms of shifting the Democratic Party further left right now? Because just running those candidates isn't going to scare anybody. Even if you run as a communist, okay, and you are the farthest left candidate in any given race, that's not going to scare the people that are in positions of power right now, because they understand that they have such a strong coalition within the Democratic Party. The two parties do. They have just this stranglehold on our government because they have coalesced power through decades and decades of, elections and campaigns run and through fundraising. This is not something where you can just come in. I mean, look at how the Green Party is treated. And they talk about the Green Party later, and we'll play those clips, but or that specific clip where they talk about the Green Party, where they talk about the Green Party basically being a joke. So again, it's fine. Cornel West is, one of their contributors, and you have people that I respect, people that are serious, that agree with trying to push the Democratic Party further left. I just think that this strategy, and especially with Jimmy's attitude of just basically saying, well, AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Pramila Jayapal are like enemies of the people and they're corrupt, and because of that we need a third party. It's BS. It just is.
Far enough, and we've seen that not even the most progressive members of Congress are fighting. So what is the strategy now? Let's have that conversation. It doesn't need to be acrimonious, but if you have some kind of secret arguments against building an independent party, the movement needs to hear those. I'd like to hear those, because the last 4.5 years, I've devoted my life to building this party and to doing it basically for nothing. I haven't received a dime for doing
bullshit.
this. And people, ever since the squad turned down Force the Vote, didn't even answer the movement, didn't even do a single interview with the independent left.
They didn't come on my fucking show. That's what that means. That's a signal to Jimmy. Oh, AOC didn't go on Jimmy's show during Force the Vote, didn't give him the time of day. It's the same BS. It's the same grift. I'm sorry. Like, okay, he is not making money from this, which, okay, I would love to see the financials from this People's Party, because I highly doubt Nick Brana isn't cutting a paycheck for 4 years, but whatever. I'm not trying to count his money here, but that's fine. The bottom line is, it to me seems like this is just an ego thing. It is all ego driven. AOC doesn't give me the time of day, so no, she's corrupt. Or Cori Bush, she's not coming on, the Jimmy Dore show or joining the People's Party, so they're all corrupt. And it's an ego thing. I'm sorry. Like that's okay. That's a gut feeling that I have. I get that, but this is ego driven, and it is not, again, the way that you build strong progressive strongholds within the current Democratic Party is through strategy and building coalitions with people that you might not agree with on everything. It really, that is how our government works. And this whole idea of, oh man, Force the Vote, they didn't give me the time of day, so screw them. We gotta go do this People's Party thing. And whatever, he said he's been doing it for 4 years. They haven't run a single candidate in 4 years. And he'll talk later about how in 6 months they're gonna get on their first ballot in their first state. If you've been doing this for 4 years, dude, I'm sorry, but it's a joke. And again, there are people that are part of this that I have respect for, but there's nothing that I've seen. I mean, they got Paula Jean Swearengin, and that's it. That's all I've seen. I mean, this is a joke, and the fact that Jimmy is touting this like this is going to be some sort of revolution for the Democratic Party, and it's gonna unmask all of these progressive politicians in just the House. Given they're not talking about the Senate. We haven't even gotten to that yet. This is just, we're talking about these damn Congress people. And if we just, are to unmask these progressives in Congress, we'll magically get Medicare for all. Force the Vote was a fucking joke. It was a joke. Okay? Force the Vote was a fucking joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for people that are naive and think that Force the Vote, getting a floor vote on in the House of Representatives, was going to magically get everybody health care. Get the hell out of here. Like, do you understand how bills become laws? Do you understand that Obamacare was contested in the Supreme Court before Trump appointed conservative Supreme Court justices? This was back during the Obama era. If we somehow passed Medicare for all in the House, it made it through the Senate, which wouldn't happen in any world, but okay, I'm in the force the vote fantasy world. Biden signs Medicare for all and oh, everybody's got health care. I guarantee you, if you understand how politics works and you're being honest with yourself, you know the Supreme Court would deem it unconstitutional and it would be contested. You have to be honest about these things, and to not talk about the nuances of the way that our government works and the way that bills become laws. It is doing a disservice to the left, and it gives people this false sense of hope, and it makes them angry at politicians that are actually trying to progress leftist policy proposals. Any leftist movements that are trying to be pushed forward and they're trying to work their way into the fabric of our society is weakened by this kind of rhetoric and this kind of unintelligent discourse on any sort of leftist policy. It just is. These guys have no idea what they're talking about. It's a joke.
Ever since then, about 35,000 people have died because we don't have Medicare for all in this country, and we're not going to come out of it supposedly out of a pandemic when Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House.
I just explained why, but again, the Supreme Court exists, and Nick Brana apparently I selectively forgetting that or just doesn't understand how government works. I can't figure out which one, but.
So if you have some kind of secret argument, now would be the time to share that with the movement. Now is the time to have that conversation. So let's have a debate.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's my favorite part of that whole thing, because in that whole diatribe, he's talking about Kyle Kalinske, and he's like, that's where the whole ego thing comes from, where it's like, oh Kyle, let's have a debate, let's talk about third parties. He's saying, Kyle, I want to come on your show and use your platform to get more exposure for the People's Party. The fuck out of here, man. I mean, it is so obvious what is going on here that I can't help but say that it's a joke, because Jimmy, all he wants is exposure. He wants these famous politicians to come on his show and give him a platform. And he's saying, oh, I have a platform, I want to share it. No, dude, you want these people to boost you want them to boost your credibility. And Nick Brana wants the same thing from Kyle Kalinske. So I just find it hilarious that you've got these two guys that are like, talk to us. And then like they're trying to make it seem like they're in some sort of like, they're so like morally pure because they want to start a third party because the Democratic Party is corrupt. It's a joke, dude. You guys are jokes.
I think that's a good sign that it is. You're right. I think people like Kyle and are starting to warm up to the third party idea. I really do think that's happening. So I don't think there's really going to be that much of a debate to have, but I would like to hear that stuff too. I would like to hear all the stuff about when they went and researched this and decided not to do it. Let's hear it.
I think it's happening because Kyle Kalinske doesn't often do super chats or public comments or Q&As and that kind of thing. And he does this one, and multiple times in that video, it's like a 2-hour video, his own audience is debating with him an independent party. And they're
Kyle,
even saying, people are commenting and saying, actually, I think you should debate Nick. Actually, I think that makes sense.
Oh, debate
and he's
me,
saying,
debate
no,
me, Kyle.
I don't want to have anything to do with it. So his own audience is pushing him into it.
I'm sorry. It's so obvious. It's so obvious what is going on here. And these guys are, again, oh, we're morally pure. No, you're not. You're just not. Ugh.
Okay,
And they were able to.
we're already beyond that as the People's Party. We're already beyond that. Okay.
I hate to be that guy, but Nick understands that you can purchase antiperspirant. He's inside, by the way. I would hate to go to like a rally or a protest with him. Don't stand next to him. If that dude raises his hands up, guaranteed. I mean, what we got going on here, Nick? Maybe wear a dark colored shirt next time. I mean, Jimmy's got the right idea. I know that that's childish, but come on, man. I gotta take a cheap shot. I watched this entire video, like 45-minute Jimmy Dore video, and at that it was giving me brain worms. So I'm allowed to take one cheap shot at this guy.
And we're just like 6 months into becoming an official party. We're registered in.
After 4 years, he said he's been working on this for 4 years, and you still are 6 months away from getting included on the first state's ballot. That like what? Come on, man.
In several states now. Soon we're about to announce the first state in which we've achieved ballot access. So we're very excited for that. And so it goes to show exactly what can be done. So it's eminently doable. You know, the idea that if really people say that the Green Party's this disorganized and yet still they got on 48 ballots, that tells you that it can be done.
That would.
How many states did they win? In 2020 and in 2016 in the presidential election? 0.
I used to make that point back then. I'm like, if people say that the Green Party is totally disorganized and they don't know what they're doing, yet they were able to get on 46, 48 ballots. You only need to be on like 23 or 24 states ballots to win.
What?
You only need 24 states to win, right? Or something like that, even less maybe. Don't quote me on any of that.
Let's just hold on just a minute. What's going on there, Jimmy? You
Okay,
and they were
so
able to.
We're already beyond.
Be on like 23 or 24 states ballots to win. You only need 24 states to win, right? Or something like that, even less maybe. Don't quote me on any of that.
I mean, do I need to continue? I mean, this is just read something, man. Do a little bit of research. I mean, honestly, I know he worked on TYT, so I'm hoping that Jimmy understands. I mean, he was part of those live, presidential election coverages and stuff. I hope he understands how the Electoral College works. I'm at this point, I doubt it. But play another Kyle Kalinske video and it's.
There's an idea that, you have to have a majority to win. You have to have majorities before we can get anything done. You have to have a majority, and that's why you have to stay on friendly terms with people like the Justice Democrats and the Squad, and instead of making them afraid of you. Which
this is what I'm talking about. Yes, it disempowers the left. It's toxic, man. You're talking about making people that are the closest to your political ideology being scared of you. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, who does this help? And I mean, like, look, I'm gonna say, let's set it aside. Let's set aside the fact that he's talking about mainly women of color. That's, or just people of color in general, because I know Ro Khanna is part of the Progressive Caucus. Don't really hear him talking about that guy too much because he's a man. But, talking about the progressives in this way, it's toxic, man. And it disempowers the left when instead of supporting those that you are closest to agreeing with politically and helping them build coalitions within the Democratic Party to grow their power, you're shivving them in the back and saying, oh, they're corrupt and they need to be scared of you. Don't vote for them. Who are you going to vote for, Jimmy? You gonna vote for Donald Trump again? You're gonna vote for Tulsi Gabbard, who literally got 0 delegates in the last election? Like, I'm sorry. What is the solution if not to strategically identify politicians that are the closest to your political ideology and prop them up, even if you don't agree with them on everything? Instead, it's, oh, I'm morally pure and I can't vote for anybody that I don't agree with 100% on everything. That is so juvenile, and it just shows such a lack of understanding of how our political system works. I mean, electoral politics in the United States does not exist in a way that we ever get candidates and oh, you want me to vote for the lesser of two evils? Fuck the lesser of two evils. Look, you don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils? Fine. But when I blame people with that ideology or that opinion for the reason that we get, in Jimmy's words, he's said this, an effective fascist this next election, you're just wrong, because these are the people that are to blame. These are the people.
Which is not the way it works. You don't need, again, if everybody in 2015 and 16, if everybody in 2016 who got called and asked them, are you going to vote for Hillary? Who are you voting for? And they would have said, I'm voting for Jill Stein. That would have, all the Bernie voters, that would have been, again, 15% of the at least 15% of the Democrats, and that she would have known she could not get elected without them. They're going to vote for Jill Stein. So what is she going to do? Well, instead of going to her right to get her vice president, she maybe would have picked Bernie or picked somebody to her left. And maybe she would have given us Medicare for all to people 45 and over instead of 50. Maybe she would have. That's how you.
Why didn't that happen, Jimmy? Why didn't that happen? It wasn't because people told Hillary Clinton that they were going to vote for Jill Stein. One, she was triangulating, which I disagree with. I don't want to come out here and defend Hillary Clinton because the way that she ran her 2016 campaign. But we got Donald Trump because of these people that, fuck, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton because she's not morally pure. Like, if people in swing states held Donald Trump in a different regard than Hillary Clinton, we might not have had a Trump presidency. But, you know, this I just want to, let's just continue because let's see where he's going with this.
You don't have to have a majority. Just like right now, the squad doesn't have a majority, but they have leverage. So if you have a third party that starts polling at 10% and they're to the left of the Democrat, now neither party can get elected without them.
How? First of all, the third party is going to draw votes from the party that is closest to it in its political ideology. So from our perspective, it's only going to hurt the Democratic Party, right? So the Democratic politicians are only going to be able to get elected with this People's Party. Well, let's continue.
If you have a populist party that's polling at 10, 15%, now neither party can get elected without them, and they got to come make a coalition with us. That you don't need a majority to affect things. Just like the squad, right now, they don't have a majority, yet they have all the leverage and power.
So that's my thing. So okay, here's the we don't have leverage, or we don't have a majority right now, but we have leverage. But then you're going to want the People's Party, in his hypothetical, if they're polling at 10, 15%, to build a coalition with who, Jimmy? The only people left are the corporate Democrats and the Republicans. You want to build a coalition with these people that you talk about being corrupt and bought by Goldman Sachs and the military-industrial complex? And do you think that they're going to want to build a coalition with you? That's what's going on with the squad right now. That's what's going on with them right now. That's why they're struggling to coalesce or to amass power in Washington, D.C. That because building coalitions with corporate Democrats is hard because their ideology isn't as close as on the surface it might seem to be. Because when it comes to core issues like campaign finance, foreign policy with intervention, with climate change policy, on social issues, yeah, okay, they all agree in gay marriage. They all agree in the issues that are acceptable to talk about on MSNBC, which I know Jimmy loves talking about. But when it comes to core issues, I guarantee you AOC is farther apart from Nancy Pelosi than she is from the one People's Party somewhat candidate, Paula Jean Swearengin. I guarantee it. And just to prove this point, because they're talking about building coalitions, let's look at a tweet that the People's Party put out with in regards to Nina Turner. Unfortunately, Nina Turner lost. That was, it was unfortunate. But let's see. Oh, let's see here. This was back on December 9th, 2020. Just in, Nina Turner has filed to run for Congress. The People's Party isn't on the ballot yet. But we can't think of anyone better to win that seat and bring a friend of the People's Party to Congress. Interesting. Okay. So we have a tweet here explaining the importance of building coalitions within the Democratic Party. Oh, okay. She becomes a Democrat. Maybe she becomes part of the Progressive Caucus in the House. Wonder what Jimmy's going to say about her then. Wonder if she's going to be morally pure. I wonder. Because before she runs, or during her campaign, oh, look, she's this big friend of the People's Party. But then when she starts to make strategic decisions with her voting, when she actually is elected to try to push these leftist ideas forward, what will Jimmy say then? I guarantee you it's going to be the same rhetoric that he has about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar. It will Cori Bush. It will be the same. They vote with Nancy Pelosi, so they're corrupt. It's a joke, man. It really is.
This change. I did an action with Extinction Rebellion where we super glued ourselves to the doorways of Congress. Now imagine someone doing that inside the actual House chamber, super gluing themselves there with a microphone and not stopping to speak on C-SPAN. Like, there's so many things that you could do that they could be doing that they're not doing.
Nick Brana, the People's Party.
The People's Party, super professional. That's his plan. That is his plan. Maybe if I just super glue myself, maybe if our candidates just refuse to leave the House floor, we'll get Medicare for all. They have no idea how electoral politics work. No idea. This guy's a joke, man. Nick Brana is a joke. Jimmy Dore, I'm sorry. You have no idea what you're talking about, dude. You just don't. Let me just play this clip here.
Good point. Jesse Ventura in 2020, without even announcing, was polling at 18%.
There you go.
Against Trump and Biden. That's high enough to get into the debates.
What? Where was that? Show me that poll, Nick Brana. Seriously, show me that poll. I looked it up. I can't find it. I tried searching for it for about 15 minutes. I could not find a single poll that Jesse Ventura was even included on during the 2020 election cycle, during the primary, during the general election. This guy just says this stuff with no repercussion. And it's a joke, man. The People's Party has this page on their website, Our Coalition. It has 9 people. Yeah, Dr. Cornel West is the first person it's listed. You know who the second person is? Jimmy Dore. You know, 2 of the other people of the 9, his wife, Steph, and his other producer, Ron Plisson. The People's Party isn't serious. These people are not serious. And if you go on Twitter or you go on YouTube and you think that by supporting these people and screaming at politicians, oh, you guys are corrupt, or oh, force the vote was a legit thing, that it disempowers young people who have left inclinations that are trying to learn about politics, because you're not teaching anybody anything. You're not explaining how we actually progress the movement. You are not explaining how laws, how we get laws on the books. You're not explaining how something moves through the House, moves through the Senate, gets put in front of the president to be signed, and then what eventually could happen when it comes to the Supreme Court. We have to look at these things. And I also just want to say, oh, well, Bernie Sanders didn't go on my fucking show, so Jimmy's now this huge Bernie Sanders truther, like Bernie's this super corrupt individual. You want to see an example of how a savvy politician who is incredibly progressive, somebody that Jimmy supported for years. Bernie Sanders works with libertarians when it comes to foreign policy. These are incredibly right-wing, conservative individuals like Rand Paul, but he identifies areas in which he can build coalitions on specific issues to progress policies of anti-interventionist rhetoric. You have to understand that there is a difference between building coalitions with people either within your party or outside of your party to push your specific policy goals through. And yes, sometimes you are going to work with people that are, one, not morally pure, but just that you might not agree with on 99% of all other issues. That happens to be the same for me. I don't agree with libertarians on probably 99%, maybe 95%, I don't know. But when it comes to foreign policy, I happen to agree with libertarians because I want to end the majority of occupations that the United States are currently in. And when it comes to trying to build some semblance of a vote majority, you need to build those coalitions within the House of Representatives or the Senate. And these guys don't talk about this in any way that offers anything like that explanation. It is just so disempowering to people that might be naive when it comes to how our government functions. And that's okay if you don't understand how our government functions. Just stop watching these guys because they're not going to teach you anything. They're just not. Jimmy he's not an educated individual. I'm not educated, but I know more than this schmuck. Nick Brana is an idiot. I'm sorry. He might have worked on the Bernie campaign. I guarantee you, this People's Party is a joke. It's a joke, man. And you can support progressives that don't want to be part of the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. But to call progressives corrupt, it is so disempowering to the left. It just is, man. And let's just to sort of put a cherry on top of this whole video, let's just watch a quick Vox video on sort of the viability of third parties and how they can function within our government. Something that Jimmy and Nick Brana have no interest in discussing. Let's actually see how this might work.
But it's also possible for a third party to win a bunch of seats in the House and Senate and try to fix Congress from the inside. That's also damn hard. Everything in Congress, pretty much, is structured by the two major parties. Committee assignments, debate rules, floor time, all of it. A third party that didn't play ball would find itself powerless. That's why third-party candidates who do win in congressional seats tend to work with one of the two parties. Think of Bernie Sanders from Vermont or Angus King from Maine. They won their seats as third-party candidates, but they caucus with and act like traditional Democrats. In Congress, even when you have 3 or more parties, you quickly realize you only really have 2.
Come on. Let's get serious, guys. Let's read. Let's educate ourselves. Let's be strategic. Let's build coalitions. And let's progress left movements in a way that can actually affect change.